Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Cosmic Force. I am one of your hosts, Tyler Riganti. And on this episode tonight, we are going to do a bit of a character study on our favorite original trilogy characters, see how they're portrayed differently in the movies, in the comics, and the novels, since we are in a complete expanded universe system. We also have a new The High Republic comic, War of the Bounty Hunters. Preludes are taking over the main lines. And we have a bit of a news drop this week. But first, let's go ahead and introduce the rest of the team here tonight. Emma, how are we doing this week?
Hello, everyone. Doing good. Very excited to talk about these characters and their very rich canon comic history.
Yeah. It was an interesting topic to when I proposed this topic. I didn't think it was going to be as in depth as it really was. Caleb, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing really well. I'm ready to get started here. Yeah, it's going to be kind of fun dissecting a lot of our favorite characters, seeing how they change from media to media, and just kind of seeing what a new dude looks like. So we're going to have a great show tonight.
Yes, and the man behind all of that, the one who makes all of us look great and does those amazing layouts with the comics in the middle. Jacob, how are we doing tonight?
Not too bad. I think you're overselling me a little bit. Basically, my job is screenshotting comic books, so I'm sure with enough training, any of you could probably get there. But yeah, I'm doing well. Thanks.
Yes, we've got an active chat tonight. So welcome to everybody that is in the chat. Eric, yes, this was a Star Wars Day special from from Jinx. It's actually a Star Wars Squadron shirt. I got this one and I got another one that I may or may not wear next week. But we have a great show for you tonight. And we are going to go. But before we do that, we actually have some news. We're not something that we normally do here, but we did have a bit of news that broke a little bit. Some of it actually just broke within the last half hour. But Jacob, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody what news we have this week?
Right. Yeah. So we got some brand new variant covers for the month of June for Pride Month. It was announced probably like a month or two ago that they were doing this, and they sent the first one that was the Sarah and Tarot covers, I believe is the first one we got, or might have been actually the Sana Staros one we saw first. But there's a full series of Pride covers featuring characters within the universe that identify as LGBTQ and with artists that are part of that community as well. So we got 6 of them for the month of June, and the first one is War of the Bounty Hunters #1, featuring everyone's favorite Dr. Aphra. This cover is by Babs Tarr. The next is Bounty Hunters 13 with Erica Quell by Jacopo Camangi.
This one was pretty popular in the Slack channel this week.
Yeah, it's a great looking cover, and I mean, well, I guess I'm sure she appeared on a variant cover for the TIE Fighter series, but first time we've seen her for a comic book in a while. The next is everyone's favorite Admiral Ray Sloan by artist J.J. Kirby for Darth Vader 13. I looked it up. As far as I can tell, no relation to Jack Kirby. Just a little fun coincidence there.
What about J.J. Drummond Jamison?
I don't think that's how that works. I don't think relations based on first names, and at least
or J.J. Abrams.
Well,
it's a pseudonym. Yeah.
As far as I know, no. The next is for High Republic #6. This is one we've already seen before. Sarah and Tarek by Javier Garron, with their beautiful vectors flying over in front of them. And now I think about it, it's kind of surprising, like the vectors can have the 1 seat or the 2 seat. I feel like they should just be together in one. Like I feel like they basically identify as the same person. They should have the same ship. But the next is another one we've already seen for Aphra issue #11, Sana Staros by artist Jan Bazdula.
I think this one's my favorite.
Yeah, her ship is so iconic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then just before I forget, they pointed out on the Living Force, but I really love the retro logo on the bottom.
I was just about to comment on that. Yeah,
the rainbow stripes. That looks amazing. And then last but not least is our boy Lando, Star Wars issue #14, art by Stefan Byrne. So there you
Nice.
go. That rounds out
Yeah.
the set of 6. I don't know if you get. Does anyone have a favorite out of the bunch? I know Son of Star Wars is a pretty popular
Yeah,
one.
Son of Stars looks amazing in my opinion.
I think the Eureka one might be my favorite just because of her in the books, and also I think it looks really cool with her sitting in the cockpit of her X-wing. But the Sana one comes pretty close.
Yeah, the Yuriko one is nice because you get the nice technical detail of the X-wing, and it's always
Yeah.
fun to see the moving parts. But I think I like just like another style of Afra, honestly. Just having like a different. She's such an iconic character. Seeing like different people take different takes on it. She kind of looks like she comes out of like an '80s like like Jim and on the hologram sort of look there.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of like the different take on like a iconic character like that.
Yeah, they're great, and it's an awesome. We in the Youtini comics community are very big on variant covers. So I'm sure we will all be talking about these as we receive them. But yeah.
Speaking of variant covers, a bunch of us were talking about cutting back, trying to save up for something coming up soon, and they did this to us. There's going to be a set of Lucasfilm 50th anniversary variant covers. Source this from Star Wars Splash Page Pod on Twitter. Great follow if you're trying to keep up on the news around our comics. But there's going to be a series of 36 different covers. And the first one is for Bounty Hunters number 13 by Chris Sprouse. And you can see in the top left corner, it's one of 36 and called A New Hope. So I don't know, we might be seeing kind of the different scenes throughout the whole Skywalker saga, I would imagine. Maybe some of the other, anthology movies as well. When we saw the action figures on the back of them had a timeline for Lucasfilm's 50th anniversary, which was the chronological the release timeline, not the chronological timeline, and it includes legends. So maybe we'll see some legend characters on a cover. Not to get Jared too excited, but yeah, it's gonna be celebrating the whole history of Lucasfilm. I would expect these to be collected, just like they way back with the action figure variants. They put those in like a trade paperback volume, and with 36 issues, that's about perfect for something like that.
I think there was the Star Wars mainline had something similar to this. They didn't have the whole banner on the bottom right, but I have one of Han and Darth Vader in the dining room on Bespin. So it's really cool that they're taking that element and kind of even ramping it up even more with the 50th ribbon there and everything.
Yeah, I'm very curious because this. So if you're paying close attention, this is the same issue that the Irika Quell variant is for. So I don't know if this is going. I'm assuming this is not going to be the B cover. I would assume all the Pride covers are the B covers. So I don't know if these are going to be. I would guess they're still on the cheaper end, but I don't know how hard they're going to be able to track down. So be on the lookout for that. Yeah. I don't think I'll personally be getting all 36, but if all 36 of them are in the War of the Bounty Hunters run, then
and we talked about last week, I think like Bounty Hunters is going to be like that long, so I wouldn't be surprised if they're trying to tie it all together to make this so that everyone has like 4 issues of every single part of War of the Bounty Hunters.
Yeah, that's a lot. It's gonna be a lot of covers. I'm excited to see what the rest of them look like. This one is this is a very good start, but we'll see. See how much it is.
I've been loving seeing all of these variant covers, and especially the Pride ones. We love seeing that representation, and also these 50th anniversary ones. I mean, if they're all going to be in the style with like the gold border, they're just gorgeous. So F in the chat for everybody's wallets.
Yeah. Well, F in the chat for everybody's wallet for this last bit of news. If you haven't seen, Celebration has been moved up. Of course, because of COVID, it was moved back to August 18th through the 21st of 2022. But now, surprise, they've decided to move it up to May 26th through the 29th. So in addition to everything else going on that weekend, because that is Memorial Day weekend, that we will all also be scrounging up the couch cushion pennies and everything to try to get out to Anaheim for Star Wars Celebration in May. This was a very, very active conversation earlier today in the Slack channel. I think we went on for probably about 45 minutes about this whole moving it up and how are we getting tickets and who's going and what is Youtini doing. It was lots
will Airbnbs even be open by then? Come on.
I'm pretty sure Carl was already checking Airbnbs. So yeah, it's fun. Have any of you been lucky enough to get to a celebration before?
Virtually.
I lived in Chicago. I was living and working in Chicago during Celebration in 2019, and like I talked myself out of getting tickets, and I was I thought about it, and then of course the like full weekend pass sold out like immediately. I'm like, well, yeah, I don't think I want to go for just one day. And then you told us in Slack today that you basically only needed a 1 day pass because they never checked to see when your tickets were good for. Yes. So I was just sadly like in my cubicle, like 45 minutes from the convention center, watching the live stream of them like unveiling episode 9. And it was like I can't believe I didn't go.
Yes, I took my son to Chicago. That was my third or fourth celebration because I live in Tampa. So Orlando is literally an hour's drive away from me. But this is the first time I've been to one outside of Orlando. My son and I bought the 2 days. And we went, and later on, my wife was like, well, I want to go. And so we ended up getting her a 1 day pass. And then we actually had the opportunity on day 1, my son got a voucher to meet Anthony Daniels for his book signing. And my wife was like, I want to go. And we were like, okay, well, let's just wear your badge. Let's see how far it gets you. And if somebody starts asking questions, you just book it, the other way and just hightail it out of there. Nobody bothered to check. She was there the entire day. It was great. So,
wow.
What about Emma? You said you had been able to attend one virtually. Caleb, have you had a chance to go yet?
Not physically, not other way. I'm here in North Georgia, so it's kind of like as we were talking a little bit earlier, I'm making the Hosh down to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge hopefully soon. But like Orlando, that's like a 7-8 hour drive. Chicago's like a flight. There was no way I'm easily getting out to Anaheim. So I don't know. One of these days now, I'm real plugged in. I might convince my wife to save up some vacation days for that.
Yeah, I definitely need to get to one at some point, though. I mean, Anaheim is it's literally on the direct other side of the United States. So that's a tough one to go to, but a Chicago or an Orlando would be like a really good location for me. So I'm going to be waiting for the day where one of them will be closer to me.
So what you're saying is Celebration 2024 is going to be in Honolulu, right? Just like get as far as possible from you in the United States.
Well, 24 is probably going to be over in Trevor's neck of the woods over in the UK. And then 2027 will be, over in Seattle or Honolulu.
My luck. Yes, that would be my luck. Yeah.
That just means we need to have our own convention, okay?
That's
for
right.
our own Star Wars fans.
Youtini Con 2022.
UConn 2022. Somewhere, well, it'll probably be in Tennessee because of Corey. Yeah, Knoxville.
Yes, it will. We'll have a Youtini East Coast celebration party together. So that does it for our news tonight. So we are going to go ahead. Like I said at the top of the show, we have a really fun discussion tonight about all of our favorite original trilogy characters. But before we do that, let's go ahead and dive right into the weekly pull list. So Jacob, I believe we have 2 new comics out this week, correct?
Yes, that is correct. We have, of course, Star Wars: The High Republic #5. There Is No Fear, Chapter 5. The writer on this is Kevin Scott, with pencils by Ario Anandito, inks by Mark Morales, cover by Phil Noto. The colorist is Annalisa Leone, and the letterer is Ariana Mayer. Then next we have Star Wars #13. This is the War of the Bounty Hunters prelude, The Hunt for Han Solo. The writer is Charles Soule. The pencils is Ramon Rosanas, cover by Carlo Pagulayana, and then colorist Rochelle Rosenberg and letterer Clayton Cowles. Two great issues this week. Yeah, a great, of course, a great issue in the High Republic as always, and then Star Wars War of the Bounty Hunters Prelude, which have you guys had a chance to read that yet?
I have. Yes.
I have not read that one. I
I feel
able
like
to read that.
I was about to say,
Our alpha.
Yeah, I read the alpha last week, but I think actually the High Republic was one of the ones that now all four of us have read as it came out, and yeah, it seems to be heating up a little bit there. In the past
for the Prelude, what it seems like it didn't have, the plot wasn't super related to the actual event. It was very literal in its use of the word prelude. It was kind of just getting the characters from where they were to getting into the War of the Bounty Hunters event, so that will probably explain how we were questioning how Vader was going to get to a place that makes sense for this event. Probably the next issue for all the series are going to be like a transitionary issue.
Yeah, for sure. I think these preludes are kind of literally tying them in, like the action of tying them into a place where it makes sense for them to be in War of the Bounty Hunters. Which is good. I'm excited. It's really amping up, and I'm really excited to see where it goes from here.
Yeah, having known this now, if you're not pulling everything but you want to read the event, I would guess the preludes aren't going to be necessary, if I'm being honest.
I would guess so as well. Yes.
But it's always nice when a series takes its time to really set up some, long-term story goals. So this is very exciting stuff. We're really ready for how this is going.
Totally.
Yeah, it's going to be lots of fun. And that's something that I'm reserving my comic book time for War of the Bounty Hunters, because as we get into our next segment of what we're loving, I didn't have too much comic reading this week, so I went with just a simple cover. This is the Mike Mayhew cover, or variant cover for, honestly, I don't remember which issue this is.
This is, Jacob, I'm pretty sure this is issue number 1.
That's what I thought too, but I wasn't entirely sure because I was enamored by the detail in this art. Like it didn't really matter. I didn't really care what the issue was for this, because I don't need. I will get the traditional, cover, but I just want this on my wall. I just want this and all of his art on my wall, because this just looks so amazing. So this is my choice for art of the week, because I didn't read a lot of comics that weren't I wouldn't put a violation on our promise to you all to not spoil things. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Emma, because she was a much better comic reader than I was this week.
Yeah, so this is from Galaxy's Edge issue number 1 with art by Will Sliney. And I love this panel showing like Han backed in a corner. It's just so familiar with Han. He's always backed into a corner in some way. And for a little bit of context here, he's trying to capture the miniature or baby, I'm not 100% sure, baby or miniature Sarlacc that is on display in Doc Ondar's Den of Antiquities on Batuu. And he kind of gets into some trouble finding it. Poor Han with that. I'm pretty sure in this issue he says something like, "Oh, I'm never gonna smuggle animals again." And then, obviously in The Force Awakens he smuggles those Rathtars, so he doesn't keep his word. But yeah, I really like this art. I like the way that the Falcon is kind of like coming down on top of him, and the tentacles are kind of coming out of the side of the page. It's really cool. Caleb, what is your art of the week?
Well, I said last week that I was going to read it and catch up on it. So I read all of the Kanan kind of mini series, all 12 issues there. So this one comes from that episode 10, pencils by Pepe Lazares. And I just I'm a kind of a sucker for any time that art does a fun transition here, because the latter half of this whole issue is kind of set up between Kanan in the present as you see him in Rebels versus Caleb Dune as he was in the past. So you can't see this fun transition of him sitting in a tank of Bacta, thinking back to his time. Man, this reminds me of the time I was a teenager and been a tank of Bacta, and just it does a really fun transition from the present to the past. The whole issue is full of little moments like this, but I just love that moment of visual storytelling here.
And last but not least, we have Jacob, what was your pick of the week this week?
Yeah, so this is from Poe Dameron Annual number 2. It was a kind of a cool issue where Han and Han and the Resistance, and therefore Leia, end up unwittingly on the opposite sides of basically a heist. And once Han realizes what's happening, he kind of has like this mental flashback of his life together with Leia, them meeting in the detention block, all the way to Ben being born, which I think this is like Aftermath hints at it, but this is like the actual only time we see Ben Solo being born. So, hey, Cheryl, this one's for you. So this is pencils by Andrea Brocardo and colors by Stephanie Renee. I just really love this one. And then in addition to my comic art, I want to show off another cool variant acquisition, which again, I'm slowing down on, definitely. I got the, this is the
nice.
Sliny variant for War of the Bounty Hunters Alpha. So I really love
cool.
this one, and it was not stupid expensive, so I figured I'd pick it up.
That's always a plus, yeah.
Yeah. So then after this, we have our community submission.
Oh, yes, the community submission. This one was from our very own Blind Fates. Actually, I think I saw you in the chat. So congratulations, Blind Fates. You won. This is from Star Wars 2015, issue 10. Kind of a good introduction as we get to see Sana Starros, really kind of in her element. I think this is like some of the first times we really get a good look at her being a smuggler, trying to make herself and take the art protagonists, Han and Leia, out of dangerous way. So you get a good look at her ship, which I don't actually remember the name of her ship. Anyone recall that? I said it's not quite as iconic there as like the Archangel or the Moldy Crow, but as I said, it's still a great little bit of action as you see the TIE fighters swooping around and trying to angle them in. Sana just being in her element and kind of one-upping Lando, or as Han Solo, as she does in almost every time. So congratulations, Blind Fates. We'll be hitting you up, see if we can get you one of those free comic codes. And if you want your art to be submitted in this little section here so I can gush over it, hit us up on Twitter, us up on Discord. However you want to get your art to us, we will take our time, go over it, and pick the winner every single week.
And breaking news, her ship is called the Volt Cobra, and I totally didn't just Google that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I totally also didn't have her Wikipedia page pulled up right now.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, no.
All right. So I know, Tyler, you said you weren't reading a whole lot, but anything that you can, Cav, lightly touch on to?
Well, I can at least comment that I read High Republic number 5. That was a great issue. I was really excited about that. The art, Ario's art in that is just stunning. He knocks it out of the park again. That's really the only thing.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that last panel is just outstanding. That's really the only comic that I've been reading because I got sucked into Greater Good. I've been reading that for about 2 weeks now, a week and a half now, and I got to the last like third of it, and I just powered through that. I'd even started reading Phasma before I picked up Greater Good, and I put that aside too. So that's done. I finished that earlier today. Great book. I highly recommend it. But now I've cleared a little bit off of my plate so I can start reading some more comics this week and start getting caught up. I think we're going to go with either the Han Solo miniseries or the Lando miniseries because I think I have all of both of those. So that's my goal for next week is to have those read for you guys. Emma, what are you reading?
Yeah, so I've been kind of slow with comics this week, although I was reading a little bit of the Star Wars Adventures that I got from the May the 4th sale. I've read Volume 1 and Volume 2. Pretty solid. Good stories. I like the extra Rey content. And then I have been reading a lot of Star Wars books. I've been reading Skywalker: A Family at War by Kristen Baver. I've really been enjoying that more than I thought I would. I didn't think that it really sounded interesting to me at first. And then Eric's review on The Living Force made me buy it. And then I started reading it and I really enjoy it. It's quite good. And I've also been reading the new Clone Wars character encyclopedia by Jason Fry, which is really awesome for me because just a little side note, one of my first ever Star Wars books that I bought, I got at a Scholastic book fair in my elementary school, and it was the Clone Wars character encyclopedia, and it only had characters from like seasons 1 and 2. And so to have this new character encyclopedia with characters from the entire show with super updated information, and the book is like the same format, it just brought back so much nostalgia. So I read every word in it front to back, and I really enjoyed it. So I highly recommend it if you're a Clone Wars fan. It's very cool. Caleb, what have you been reading?
I feel like I've been reading actually a lot, so I think I passed up both of you combined. I feels like I said I did all of Kanan, all of 12 issues, and that was really good just because of I said I was going to do it last week, and that's not like I had to force myself through it. It was really well done. Very, like, if you love Kanan, if you love Caleb Dune and that whole area there, it's a great read. Some really great emotion and pathos there. And then another recommendation, Andrew Bell in the chat a while ago tried to convince me that actually Darth Vader in a ghost prison was the greatest.
Yes,
it was the greatest thing. I said no. Of course, I haven't read it, but now I have read it. I will freely admit it's really good. Maybe some of the top 3 of kind of single like 6-issue, 5-issue like comics there. It was, I think it was from 2012, and it's back in the Dark Horse era of when they were publishing comics, but it was still the Disney era, I think, when they owned it. So some weirdness going on with that, but just some really fantastic art. If you don't have to know much going into it, just know that it's kind of like a microcosm of how corrupt and how terrible it would be to serve in the Empire, just like the weird backstabbing and politics going on as like being an Imperial cadet. Really good. So Andrew Bell, if you're out there, good recommendation. Keep them coming. Jacob, have you been reading anything good?
All right. Yeah, so I was out of town for a nice, safe, socially distant, masked wedding. Just gonna put all the clarifiers there. So I don't read as much, although the drive there did allow me to finish Greater Good with Audible, so that was fantastic. I've been continuing on with my release order read through, and I kind of read through most of the Age of the Republic stuff last week, which was way better than I expected it to be. Like, I just thought it was like, oh, it's just gonna be like kind of like, one-off stories, like here's a little small mission here or there for all these different characters. It was like surprisingly very good. Like my art.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there.
I've been like stockpiling my art of the weeks as I go, just makes my life way easier. And my one next week is from one of those, and it's fantastic. So I'm excited to see the Age of Resistance and Age of Rebellion when I get to those. But yeah, Age of Republic was very surprisingly good. So would definitely recommend checking that out.
Yes. So we all have some homework for next week because apparently we all took the week off when it comes to lots of our reading. So I expect all of us, myself included, to have read much more next week when we meet again. All right, we are going to take a short break to feature some merchandise, and then we are going to come back and we are going to talk some original trilogy characters. So we'll be back in just a few seconds. Yeah. All right. So tonight we're going to do, like I said before, we're going to do a little bit of a character study here. And this was something that was actually we were all really excited about. So we know that as the expanded universe is growing, there's a bunch of different mediums now. We've got movies, we've got novels, we've got comics. There's audio dramas. So we thought it'd be a really interesting discussion to kind of pick an era and pick some characters that we have seen in all of these mediums, and kind of discuss how they're the same, how they're different in each of the mediums. and when I started going through this, I was like, oh, well, this is going to be easy. We'll just pick all these characters, and then I realized that that character list was like 30 characters deep, and then I was like, oh, well, Han Solo is a little bit different in the original trilogy as he is in the sequel trilogy. So how am I going to contain this to a 20-minute conversation on the show? So we set a few ground rules here. The ground rules are, first and foremost, we're going to do our best to avoid any comic spoilers and or newer novel spoilers. I'm pretty sure we're okay on the novels part, but we will mention some situations from the mainline 2020 comic, but we'll try to keep it as away from spoilers as possible. We are also going to try to stick to canon as much as possible, again, for levity's sake, because I mean, if we went into the legends, we don't have Jared here, first and foremost. We don't have Jared here to talk about the legends novels, and the bench for the legends comics is just so deep that we'd be here for 4 hours, and we'd only be talking about Luke Skywalker. And last,
and all his girlfriends.
Yeah, well, yeah, he's got quite a few in Legends. And last, we're going to try to do our best to stick to the characterizations during the original trilogy. So, like I said, Leia and Han and Luke, they're very different characters in the sequel trilogy. Obi-Wan is actually somebody that isn't featured as much in the original trilogy, so we kind of left him out. But we're going to try to stick to how they are characterized during the original trilogy. And Caleb, you're going to kick it off tonight with our hero, Luke Skywalker.
Oh yes, the hero of 1,000 faces, Luke Skywalker. You know, our kind of innocent farm boy turned Jedi Master at the end of the movie trilogy. You know, like he's, as I said, like, you know, mildly joking, but he's kind of Campbellian element of a hero who's, you know, has a destiny thrust upon him to become who he is. So yeah, in the movies, it's a really classic arc, you know, tinge of his dark side when he's, you know, towards the end, where, you know, you feel the temptation to strike down the Emperor Palpatine and, you know, reign with his father is a real pull to him. It's not like something he can easily slough off, but, you know, ultimately he comes around and, you know, fulfills his destiny and, you know, becomes a Jedi Master. You know, in the comics, you know, it's good because you get a lot slower take with him, like a lot more like over the 2015, you know, series, so you have a lot more time of him. Really, it's almost maybe a little tropey, like every arc is like, hey, I wonder where Jedi thingy I can track down now to not learn anything from. You know, it feels like, you know, a sitcom where at the end he finally gets it in, it winds up breaking, or they, you know, where he can't ever pay the rent. But like, it's a good, you know, arc, it's a good story, and, you know, he's definitely, they take his time of developing him into rebellion and developing him with his like companions, and actually set himself up as like the farm boy hero who's still, you know, relatively humble. So you know, as for the novels, I haven't read too many of these new canon novels of that time period. Someone else want to reach in, like, what were some of your characterizations for him in the novels?
Yeah, I could feel this one. So in Heir to the Jedi, which is really one of the only canon novels that has Luke in it, he's really young and naive. It's been a while since I've read that book, but I just remember feeling like he was more of that A New Hope Luke. Sort of, you know, new to being, you know, going on adventures in the galaxy and sort of having new experiences with that. And then the only other canon book that he's been in is The Legends of Luke Skywalker, but a lot of that is sort of sequel trilogy focused. And to be honest, I'm kind of surprised that he's not in more novels, but at the same time, comics does portray him very solidly, I would say.
Yeah, I would agree with that. What we lose in his portrayal in novels, we more than make up for in comics, and sure. that's something that I like, because, you know, it's and this is something that we'll get into a little bit later when we talk about characters like Lando. There's a lot of stuff to fill in there. There's a lot of gaps in the character that I want to see in, you know, that was one of the things that I enjoyed about Heir to the Jedi. There wasn't a lot, to be honest, that he really is struggling with the learning how to be a Jedi in a time when there's no teachers, and he's just has to go around and find Jedi artifacts and be given Jedi artifacts and then do nothing with it for the rest of the book. But yeah, luckily we have a lot of content in the comics that features him.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a second and bring up another medium for a second. And Emma, I think you'll enjoy this. Honestly, my favorite canon expanded universe version of Luke Skywalker is Battlefront 2 Luke Skywalker, believe it or not.
I totally agree with you.
I think the one mission where with was it Dev or Del or whatever?
Del, yeah. Yep.
Del, yeah. I think like that is like the perfect encapsulation of like fully realized Jedi Luke.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, the mission itself was like kind of boring. Like it was on Pilio and you like
it's like
crunch a bunch of bugs.
Yeah.
yeah. But the cutscene portrayal of Luke was like, oh my god, it was perfect. I totally agree with you.
But yeah, to reel back to comics for a little bit, I think I had a bit of a literal shower thought this morning about this topic, where I often hear people talk about, Luke is so much darker in Return of the Jedi, and I get it to a certain extent. Like he like chokes the Gamorrean guard, and he like hacks at Darth Vader. But I think you're seeing flashes of darkness that are being overshadowed when really he's so much more at peace, and he's so even keeled, and his mind is so calm for most of the movie. Like just how he interacts with everyone. He's no longer the farm boy anymore. And what's really exciting, again, is with the comics filling in all those holes, I'm so excited as we get more of this 2020 run to see how Luke Skywalker turns up to be that man we see in Episode 6. Because that's my favorite version of Luke. That the version we see in Return of the Jedi and the one that we see shortly after in Battlefront 2.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, he's like, sort of mastered himself, like all of most of his emotions and also his curiosities about the Force. And I think we're already starting to see how he develops from that Empire Strikes Back Luke to the Return of the Jedi Luke, because I mean, if you watch the two movies back to back, you're like, oh my gosh, this is like a different guy.
Totally.
But the comics are totally filling this in right now.
Right. And that's what I was going to say. I think that makes his portrayal in the throne room pay off that much more, because now that we have the comics, we see the struggles that he goes through. We see the emotions and the doubt. And I mean, for me, the comic stories allow me to not, relate's the wrong word, but feel the emotion in that moment that much more, because of all the trials and tribulations that we've seen him go through and all the times he's had to pick himself back up. And we only get those stories in comics.
Exactly. Comics can, like, we've now seen Luke, like, if we return to comics into movies, like, we've probably had like 10 movies worth of like just Luke comics like alone. So like there's a lot of like content we can get into. I'll bring this point up now. I was talking to a friend and telling him to get into Star Wars comics, and he's kind of like, well, the problem is, I already know we're kind of bounded. We know exactly where Luke has already began and where he'll end up at. So, you can't really do a lot of character development there. But at the same point, the good news is we've now can see the points along the way. So yes, it's not like they can have Luke go like full evil mode, and start red lightsaber, but we still can see him being fleshed out a lot more directly, a lot more fully. So like having these characters that we know and seeing them do different things, that's always fun. It's great to have Luke fleshed out.
Right. Yeah, and if we're going to talk about flesh out characters, we should definitely talk about our next character here, and that's Darth Vader. I don't think I mean, we could just leave it at Darth Vader in comics and be done with it. But obviously, for entertainment's sake, we need to go deeper into that. So Caleb, why don't you start off with our discussion about Darth Vader?
Absolutely. Let's face it, Darth Vader is the most recognizable villain in all media. Films, television shows. He is the apex predator of all villainy. from someone who just has 12 minutes of screen time in the very first film, he has left such an imposing presence throughout that area. And let's face it, like I think Jared was mentioning, in the old Legends comics, 75% of them were split between him and Boba Fett. Here in the main line, we've had, the main heroes get like one comic series, but Darth Vader has his own series in both, the 2015 and 2020. Like Darth Vader is impressive, and his presence in comics is way expanded beyond what we ever saw there. So it was definitely a very less is more in the movies, but in the comics we really dig deep into his psychology and his his motivation and all the terrible things he does. So we get a lot of great flashes to his past, to his present, like his loyalty to the Emperor, but also how it's kind of just like a terrible relationship, and the amount of for not to be decided, it's an abusive relationship between him and the Emperor.
Oh, totally.
It's
sure.
he is using the Vader as his blunt force to try to do it, and constantly brain him because he's a failure, and the whole reason he's setting him up is so he can get Luke to be his real predecessor. So in the comics, Vader's a lot more of a dynamic and powerful figure. Novels, I don't think there's any like major canon novels or even that many Legends novels that take place in this time period, so we can really dive into Vader during the old trilogy.
I do have one novel, Lords of the Sith, I believe it's called. And it takes place in the original trilogy timeline. Again, it's been a while since I've read this one, but I believe it takes place on Ryloth mostly, with him and Palpatine, right?
Yeah,
or him and Tarkin.
Yeah, no, it's Palpatine, because there's Tarkin, which is him and Tarkin, and then
right.
Lords of the Sith is him and Palpatine. They basically get stranded on Ryloth with Cham Syndulla and his rebels trying to kill them, and then them just being Sith Lords and just murdering everything on their planet, basically. Yeah. And
that was pretty much all that was. Yeah.
Anakin fixes a radio, or Darth Vader fixes a radio at fun times. Yeah,
he was also sort of featured in treason in Thrawn
Alliances.
Treason as that's right, you're right, Alliances.
Yeah.
But he was as much as you can, he was kind of a secondary character, I
would agree.
In that book. He is so, to be the most evil person in the world, but yet to be relatable at the same time, is a master storytelling that for all of these people, because there is so much internal struggle with him. And I feel in Vader 2020, I feel sorry for him for what the Emperor puts him through. And to have somebody be that menacing, but yet have me feeling kind of sorry for him is just, he's such an amazing character.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's I think one of the more interesting things I've seen them add to the character, it's been shown in Lords of the Sith and Thrawn Alliances and a few of the comic books, and also Rebels, is how Darth Vader has put that mental block up in his mind to separate the Darth Vader side of him and what was Anakin, or he'll call it the Jedi. He's trying to have to mentally separate his past to deal with what he's gone through. And by making those two separate entities and two separate memories, he can kind of move forward with his new reality.
Even though it's not technically canon anymore, the in Darth Vader, the Ghost Prison, they have to go through some Jedi archives, and the Blackie for that series is who's that? Is that Anakin Skywalker, the hero? And Darth Vader says, yes, he was the greatest general, and I killed him. So that lie that Obi-Wan says, he himself, Darth Vader, admits that I killed Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah. I think for me, the main thing in the comics that is brought to light in terms of Vader's characterization is the distrust between him and Palpatine. I mean, you should be able to trust your mentor and have them be a parental figure, and instead, throughout all of the comics that we see Darth Vader in, literally all of them, we consistently see Palpatine trying to get Vader to fail. And I would think that would be, if that's a form of mental torture, really.
Mm.
Yeah, he can never win.
I mean, yeah, we've got he goes up against the Inquisitors. He goes up against
Silo Force,
right.
freak show of Force users.
Ochi Bastoon.
Yeah, right.
Ochi.
And he's consistently being told, like, Emma, like you said, you are a failure, and you're going to be replaced. And yet he continues to overcome all of that. And it's just it's such an amazing, like I said, I'm so glad that we had the comics to be able to go through all of this, because there's so much emotion in this character. And I think that's why everybody really enjoys Anakin as a character in the prequel trilogy, because we see it makes that transition to what he's become so much more painful.
Right.
So, and let's try to pick up the spirits here, and now we want to go, as Emma added to the show notes here, the backbone of the rebellion. Emma talked a little bit about Princess Leia of Alderaan.
Yeah, so Leia, I love her in the comics so much. But first, let me talk about her a little bit in the movies. So in A New Hope, she was kind of we were led on to believe that she was going to be a damsel in distress type of character who doesn't need, who needs someone to get her out of the Death Star. But then that idea is flipped on its head when she's really the one who saves Han and Luke and Chewie from the Death Star, getting the garbage chute flyboys. And in the movie, she was just like this strong leader who everybody turned to for advice. I mean, when I'm thinking about her in the movies, like, one scene that really sticks out to me is in Empire Strikes Back, when she's sort of giving everybody the pregame speech, so to speak, all the pilots on Echo Base, and everybody's just like, so thoughtful and paying so much attention to her, and you can tell that everybody just respects the hell out of her, and so I love that she's thoughtful and really leads the rebellion well, and she does that throughout all three movies, really, and those qualities still continue on in the comics. There's just her portrayal is just more nuanced in the comics, I would say. We see her struggling a little bit, but we also see her building up the rebellion even further. And then in terms of novels, she's been in the novels quite a bit. We have Leia, Princess of Alderaan, which sort of portrayed her as a teenager by Claudia Gray. Got to shout her out. So we get to see her upbringing and why she is the way she is, as such a good leader and an inspiration in the rebellion. And then, of course, in Bloodlines, where we see her political savvy and her sort of carrying the burden, but also trying to deal with her past, because I mean, let's face it, she's been through a ton of trauma, and that's really sort of at the core of her portrayal in the EU, is how does she deal with trauma, but also moving on to lead the rebellion to bigger and better things.
Absolutely. Like, I think one of my more favorite like comic bits was in Star Wars Annual #2, I think it was, where she kind of has like a one-off adventure with like a kind of a scroungy, muscly scrounger underwater welder type, and she asks Leia, like, how do you do this? Like, your entire planet was blown up by the people who are chasing you. Why do you keep going on? And like, that theme has been brought up a lot more in the comics and in the novels, something that they honestly kind of gloss over in the movies. Not saying that like that was as a mistake. There's a lot that he had to get to, but like in the comics, to get a slowdown, like, man, it was hard for her to deal with that fact that everyone she knew was blown up, and she will, like they say, you can never go home. Literally, she can never go to her childhood home, and how she uses that as a way of springboarding forward and like saying, I cannot stop now, and I don't know if I would have been able to stop it then. That sort of like level of mental fortitude and how she's like dedicating herself to this cause. That, like, you get some really amazing moments of Leia in the comics.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I had it featured as one of my comic arts of the week a few weeks ago, but
It was, I think it was mainline number one, 2020 mainline number one, where they're in the Falcon leaving Cloud City, and in a matter of 5 panels all on one page, you've got, the compassionate, caretaker taking care of Luke, who has just not only has he gotten defeated, but he realizes who Darth Vader is, and as soon as that moment has passed, and Lando is kind of like, well, what are we going to do? Like, she immediately flips, back into what it will soon be General Leia, leader of the Rebel Alliance, and just the fortitude and the, passion and everything, just, it's all on her face, and is like, this is what we need to do, and I love that. And I just recently read Bloodlines, and that was a great, her being paired up with the senator. I can't remember what his name is. I'm awful with names. The senator, the senator who
Costerfo.
Yes, who appreciated Imperial memorabilia without understanding the pain that it caused. That was such a great storyline, and really great way to sort of characterize, add more depth to Leia. So yeah, backbone, Emma, you're absolutely right when you say the backbone of the rebellion, because and I mean, we don't say it because we're focusing on the original trilogy here, but the backbone of the Resistance, and Bloodline literally lays that out, but Leia is just, is a phenomenal character.
Right. Yeah. Again, we're not trying to get into the Resistance, but I think she's played so incredibly well in the Poe Dameron comics, showing that, for obvious reasons, we don't see as much of her as we would have liked in the sequel trilogy movies. But it really plays up that character, that the general of the Resistance in the Poe Dameron comics, and you can see what led us up to The Force Awakens. But I think, Leia, I think, got a really great development in the comics, because she is a leader in Episode 4, but she's captured for most of the movie. She shows up at the end. They're like, all right, time to do Yavin 4 battle. Let's go, and she helps with that. But the comics, especially with like the Mutiny at Mon Cala and Hope Dies and all these great arcs towards the end, really show how she becomes like a centerpiece in the leadership of the rebellion, and that backbone. And we also get to see a little bit more of the, I guess, sassy side of Leia, the Leia that's punching dudes in the face for being an asshole. Like, she'll let you know if you're doing something wrong. So yeah, I think she's really gotten some great development through the comic books, just like all these characters have.
I was about to say, as the kids like to say these days, a real glow up.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one last thing that I'll just throw in about Leia. I mean, I could do an entire 2-hour episode on Leia in the comics just by myself. So, I'll just throw a few little thoughts in here.
Next week on the Cosmic Force.
That's right.
Justification for 3 of us.
Emma goes rogue.
Jacob hits live on the recording and walks away from his computer.
There you go. Easiest show in the world, right? So just a quick thought here. I'm thinking about the Princess Leia miniseries, and how she's trying to sort of run the rebellion, but also deal with the cause that she's that's very important to her, which is helping the survivors of Alderaan and finding the survivors of Alderaan. That arc really showed her duality in, not only is she a strong rebellion leader, but she also cares about her people and her homeworld. And I think that was nice to see. And then the last thing I'll say is that Jacob mentioned Mutiny at Mon Cala, which is my favorite volume in the Star Wars mainline in 2015. The cover is badass. I love that cover. Also, it's just so cool to see how she sort of got together the Mon Calan ships that we see in Return of the Jedi and The Empire Strikes Back, because all of a sudden they have this kind of big fleet, or bigger fleet anyways, than what they had in Episode 4, and it was cool to see that Leia had like a gigantic part in gathering those forces. So yeah, Leia, fantastic in the comics.
Yeah, just really quickly on the Mutiny of Mon Cala, reading that along with, because if you're reading it later, you might not realize that, but that arc and Burning Seas from Darth Vader 2017 came out at the same time, like back to back. So reading those together is a really cool experience. You're basically seeing like what happened to Mon Cala, right before Empire Strikes Back, where they are now, still being under the thumb of the Empire, and then Darth Vader 2017 shows how they got absolutely destroyed by Vader and Tarkin and everyone to get to where they are later. But,
awesome. I'll have to do that.
And then don't forget to read the Clone War, or watch the Clone War episode right before that as well.
Clone Wars season 3 there's like the first couple episodes. I think.
This is a season opener, yeah.
But our next character, we got a few more, is everyone's favorite, the fastest pilot in the galaxy, a scruffy looking nerf herder, some might say even, is Han Solo. It's so easy to just say, man, I really love how this character, how we saw that, how they got from point A to point B, from movie 1 to movie 2, because Han Solo and another character we're going to talk about later, I think really needed that development. Because I mean, he is a guy that coming in the movies cares about himself and Chewbacca, but himself, Chewbacca, and the Millennium Falcon. As long as those three things are okay, Han Solo does not really care. Like he
or that's what he'd like you to believe.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, he's got the heart of gold at his core, but he definitely needs the development to get him to the point where he's leading ground invasions on Endor in Return of the Jedi. Like, that is not the Han Solo you saw in A New Hope. Most definitely not. So I love seeing him get that character development. He had his own comic miniseries, which I believe is where this screenshot's from. But he's on a mission. It seems like a lot of his, honestly, until Return of the Jedi, a lot of his dealings with the rebellion is kind of like he tries to make it seem that it's against his will. People are always just like, Han, please come back. Han, we need you. And he's like, okay, but obviously he feels like he's needed at heart, and he feels like this is the right thing to do. But we need to see how he gets from kind of reluctantly helping to being there at the front lines, being the first guy to volunteer later in the series.
Yeah, for sure. I think that the comics are really an important read in terms of understanding his growth from episode 4 all the way to episode 6. I mean, we see him sort of slowly starting to be more and more willing to do missions, but kind of also layering it with that, like, oh, if I have to, but I'd really like to go, type of thing. So I enjoy seeing that growth of him saying, okay, yeah, this is a really good cause to be a part of, and I should really be helping out because they need me, clearly.
Absolutely. Like, one thing I do feel like they did in the comics is they played up his like flirtatious charm a lot.
Yes.
Like they can't go a single issue without him desperately hitting on Leia. You're like, there's a point like, boy, you need to put that on a low heat for a while, man.
So much so that they even joked about it in the From a Certain Point of View. Right. The Empire Strikes Back, A Certain Point of View mini stories.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. And speaking of books, there's the Last Shot book, which it's kind of like kind of sequel trilogy era type of thing. But we get to see him sort of focusing on kind of slowing down a little bit. Not as much of this adventurous smuggler, but sort of transitioning towards a more chill husband and father. And it was cool to see that side of him too.
Yeah, he's definitely, I think, just like Luke, we get a chance to see to really get into his psyche a little bit more, and he becomes, he's got that rough exterior that we all fell in love with in episode 4, but he starts to become a little bit more insecure, especially if we go back to the Bloodlines novel. I mean, he's kind of off doing his own thing, and it's at least from my perspective, it was that was a self-inflicted sort of isolation because of everything that was going on with Leia being pregnant, and Chewie at that point it was no longer with Han, and so he was kind of like finding his own person and trying to relive the glory days of Han Solo without becoming the legend of Han Solo. And it was just, again, his relationship with Leia, especially in that book, is really something that I was different. And I think, and I really like to see these more human moments that we have with these characters that movies just don't have the timing to show us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a little somewhat related to what you said about like the legend of Han Solo. I think it's very telling when you get to the Force Awakens and you see Rey meet Han Solo. It's like, you're Han Solo, and then you see like the Conja Club and the whatever the other gang is being like, dude, no one cares. Like, you've swindled every person in the galaxy. Like, everyone is fed up with you. Like the girl, the Rey from nowhere, this young woman stranded on a desert planet doesn't know Han Solo the past 15 years. She knows the Han Solo that was the hero, helped take down the Death Star and all that stuff. But everyone else at later in his life is, it's like, dude, like how many times do you have to learn this lesson? It's like
old man.
Yeah, old man. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, like, let's face it, in the original, he always kind of had a rough sort of thing too. Like in the very first one, the only reason he takes Luke and Obi-Wan is because he desperately needs money to pay off his debts to Jabba the Hutt. Like he is the world's most infamous smuggler, not because he's good at his job, but because he's bad at his job.
This is so true. I don't think we think about that enough, honestly.
Like literally everyone else that he put in the smuggler role is more successful than him. Lando, way more successful. He's a baron of Cloud City. Sanastaros, way more competent, doesn't have the law on her all the time. Not in a direct parallel when it comes to smuggling, but Dr. Aphra, same sort of thing.
Does Aphra call that out? Why do I feel like there has been a character that calls out and was like, Han Solo is not really that great. I don't know what y'all think of him.
Like Screaming Citadel or something.
Oh, no, it was Invader Down. Invader Down. Like
right, and they're like having that little standoff. Yeah.
Also it shows the bounties and just Luke Skywalker and this is Leia Organa Solo. Well, Leia Organa, and this is Han Solo. She's like, ooh, Han Solo, and 000's like, ooh, have you heard of him? She's like, no, he's a nobody. I have no idea who this person is. Looks like a loser.
Pretty much.
Well, that's a perfect transition to when we talk about looks. This next character has a very definitive look that has become, as we've said, accentuated now in the comics. Jacob, let's talk about Palps.
Right. So, of course, starting with Dark Empire. No. So
Jared is in the chat. So
he is in the chat. I think the most interesting thing about Palpatine and how he's portrayed in the original trilogy is the two sides of Palpatine. 'Cause I think honestly, it's separate characters when you're talking about Darth Sidious, the Sith Lord, and Emperor Palpatine, the dude that's ruling over a galaxy, because there's just different facades to what he decides to put up. I think. He is this totalitarian ruler of a galaxy. He is a master of dark arts that's, cloning himself on Exegol and doing all this crazy, out of this world dark side magic. But I think a great story, there's most of the comic books are him being like, Vader, you suck. Like 2015 Vader, it's like Emperor being basically like, Vader, you suck. 2017 Vader, you're okay so far, but you still kind of suck. 2020 Vader, you really suck. Like that's basically all Palpatine is. I think a really cool, like, off the beaten path Palpatine story is Star Wars 2015 Annual Number 1. There's this like spy that basically, this is what this is pictures from. There's this like the spy that goes after Palpatine to try and assassinate him, and you see a little bit of both. You're seeing like Emperor Palpatine executing some senators that were sympathetic with the rebellion cause, and then you see him flash his force lightning at the end. Sorry, spoilers. So you get to see a little bit of both sides of the enigma that is Sheev Palpatine, and I think that's what makes this character interesting. Because I mean, again, if you're confining it to the original trilogy, he doesn't have that much screen time, and he's an even much smaller factor in the novels than Vader is during this time. Like he has an appearance or two in the Thrawn books. He has a few appearances in like Tarkin, and I mean he's a secondary character in Dark Lords of the Sith. But I think
we don't get any growth for him in the novels.
He's always just the big evil guy. But I think you're seeing a little bit more nuance in the comics.
Yeah, like in the annual you were talking about, it's kind of like one of his many hidden cards in his sleeves is that he's a Jedi master. So when the assassination tries to go off and he winds up using the Force to get himself out of that, that was like a really powerful and kind of like, oh crap, I forgot he does have all that extra power there. So yeah, that's definitely a factor there. Tyler, you got something?
I had something and then I forgot because I was reading ahead in the notes. He's a very interesting, he's so well thought out, and I will, even though, we don't see as viewers, we don't see Exegol, until Rise of Skywalker, but in the recent comic series, it's found out that that's something that he's planned well in advance, and that's something, it's kind of hard to contain Palpatine's forward thinking to just the original trilogy and just the canon comics, because every single time he's in a story, he has some future plan. So I will have to give him that sort of, he's an excellent strategist, and that's something that we continue to see. But he is also, equally as well as a manipulator, because of how, when we were discussing Vader, he is just downright abusive to Darth Vader, and does it in a way that makes him feel even more evil and sinister than what we already know him as a character.
Yeah, I mean, we know that he planned out Darth Vader, Anakin becoming Darth Vader, and in the comics, he's still planning out Darth Vader and how he's going to become angrier and more evil and maniacal. Like, he's still carrying out his plans. Like, we think that it's over, but it's definitely not, and the comics show that.
I want to spoil a super minor detail from a more recent issue of Darth Vader.
I give you permission.
All right.
Everybody skip ahead like 10
I was just saying,
seconds.
you've got 60 seconds.
I again, just like talking about him being abusive to Darth Vader is so cool, and like it was like issue 11 or something like that, where those droids are going after Vader on Mustafar, and they like destroy him and come away. They're trying to scrap him for parts to upgrade themselves, and they're like, dude, what the heck? This is all like 30-year-old technology. Like, this is garbage. And they're like, well, no, that's just the stuff he fixed himself with. It's like, no, all of it is garbage. Like, he's being purposely built with trash technology to make himself worse by Palpatine, which is, I think that was the thing in Legends as well, but it's cool to see that come back here. And it's, again, Palpatine's trying to hold him back at whatever is necessary.
Absolutely. Because again, I don't think it's really shown there, but Palpatine is kind of maybe a little afraid of Vader. Vader is the only person who could directly threaten him in any way. And it winds up being true. Vader is the one who does kill Palpatine in the end.
Yeah.
Another minor note, though, of just like the comic series, in my personal opinion, it seems like all the writers are on this like weird like arms race to make his face more wrinkled and disgusting as possible. Like, every time I open up a Vader issue, I'm like, oh, here's Palpatine. Oh god, wow, that really did leave you scarred. That attack, I believe, on your life did leave you scarred.
Was it Vader issue 6 where he was on the cover?
With like the lightning and this.
Yeah. And it's like, was his face that wrinkled I don't remember there being that many wrinkles.
It's just like there's eventually going to be an issue where it's just like the original Empire Strikes Back, like monkey face or whatever. It's just like the giant eyes. Like, all right,
that's what
he looks like.
We're gonna get just wait. At some point, it's going to happen. We are going to get a modernized version of Naked Palps. And yes, I said that solely so we could get a Naked Palps reference in this episode to satisfy Jared.
We were so close. We made a Naked Palps reference without saying it. Wasn't that good enough?
No, it wasn't good enough for Jared.
We won't ever see the worst iteration of Palpatine because they canceled the Rise of Skywalker novelization or comic adaptation. So we'll never see zombie Palpatine. But yeah, the wrinkles arm race is definitely a thing.
So I want to move. We're going to move to our last character of the night, and
someone with no wrinkles at all.
Someone with no wrinkles at all. And honestly, at least in the comics, he has become my favorite character. At least in the comics, and that's Lando. And it's because we see him in the movies. He's this suave, charismatic, character who is worse than Han is when it comes to double crossing his supposed friend. I mean, he turns Han and Leia and Chewie over to Darth Vader, and then the next thing we know, he's all of a sudden undercover rescuing Han, and then he's the general of the most historic and important dogfight in the history of the galaxy. And it's like, this doesn't make sense. Like, how did this person who one movie ago now all of a sudden is so trusted that he's now in charge of your space force, to lead an attack on the Death Star? But we get to learn. I mean, Solo movie and Donald Glover's portrayal of him in that movie is probably peak Lando, and I don't want to spend too much time talking about that, other than the fact that just that's the level of charisma and positiveness that Lando has. But in the comics, he's still out for himself. In mainline 2020, he puts himself in a position to where he is definitely playing both sides of the field. And is waiting to see what side is going to come out on top. But you can definitely see that he's troubled by it, and you could start to see where he starts to become the trusted person at the beginning of Return of the Jedi, and his loyalty to Lobot. There's a scene in the mainline as well where they are talking, the people that are around Lando are talking about sacrificing Lobot for the greater good. Like they're in the middle of a mission, and what Lobot is doing is integral to the success of the mission. And they're basically looking at Lando like, look, every good soldier, needs to play their role. And Lando is not having it. He was like, no, he has saved me, and I'm going to save him. And that is my friend. And you are not going to do this to him. And he's such a deeper character. And I that's kind of what I feel is the theme of the night. In comics, we get to see these characters in a deeper role, and that's why he's become one of my favorite characters in the comics.
Yeah,
I think even in the main line, he is still out for himself, but at the same time, you can start to see little glimmers of him wanting to be accepted and wanting to be trusted, and wanting to help try to find Han. And I enjoy that we get to see his willingness in that, because he didn't become general in the Rebel Alliance by not wanting to. You know what I'm saying? But we don't even really see that in the movies, his willingness to help out the rebellion, much like Han. Like, we don't really see his growth up to willingness. And it's very similar to Lando's arc, honestly, like in terms of their willingness to want to actually assist the rebellion instead of feeling like they're being dragged along.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference with Lando is I think he has farther to grow in less time. Like, Han Solo is like in A New Hope is like he cares for himself first, but he's still willing to do the right thing. Lando in Empire Strikes Back it's him first, then I guess Cloud City, but that's also, you could still argue that Cloud City's interests are his best interests, and then whatever comes later. And then he has one less movie to make that growth. So I think the 2020, it's still so early in the 2020 run, but that's gonna do a lot of good for that character. But then also, I mean, I'm gonna steal this from Caleb because I know he's gonna have to mention it, is the Lando miniseries. Double or Nothing's good, but the original Lando miniseries by Charles Soule is so good. And like, if you want to talk about like how much he cares for Lobot, read that series, because my God, it humanizes Lobot in ways you couldn't imagine. I know we're not talking about him right now, but like, it goes to show the kind of person Lando is beyond, yeah, just like the selfish person we see in Empire Strikes Back, and then the sudden out of nowhere general hero destroyer of Death Star #2 guy we see in Return of the Jedi. You see the more nuanced Lando take, which is, it's so good.
Exactly. Plus, he almost has, in that mini series, Myers, almost spoiler, but he almost has his own like Emperor Palpatine level of like master level deception of like, I never touch blasters. I'm not a blaster person at all. I don't even know how they work thing. And that just like seeing Lando playing the smart game and the long game so long for like a longer period of time, it just really like cements himself as a, someone who's, like, to put in RPG standards, like he's playing the same class as Han Solo, but he's on a whole nother like path or a whole nother level of than Lando is, or than Han is. Like, they both rolled up the same thing, but put completely different stats in different areas. And, one person and is obviously way more committed to his character.
Yeah, it's like I said, I'm the thing that I like the most about these comics is all the time that we get to spend with them, because they deserve it. And we as Star Wars fans, we try to find as much time as we can spend with these characters that we love, and it nothing takes nothing away from learning new characters and from being introduced to the prequel trilogy characters and the sequel trilogy characters, and the characters like Dr. Aphra, who have their own special place in our hearts. But these core characters that we were introduced to this galaxy, they're just they're in their own world. At least for me. I mean, I was brought up on the original trilogy, so I'm a little bit older. So these characters were my introduction, instead of the prequel trilogy. So these characters are very important to me. So the more time I can spend with them, the more that I enjoy it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, these characters are much like how Leia is the backbone of the rebellion. These characters really are the backbone of Star Wars. I mean, the prequels lead up to them, and the sequels, they lead up to the sequels, and it's just awesome to be able to get more of their character development in the comics.
Absolutely, yeah. And we just barely scratched the surface. I mean, we just talked about the main characters, but there's some more organizations, side characters, completely different realms of like, the timeline we could talk about. But no, this was, it's great being able to see these characters. And as I said, we all know where these characters will wind up in the long run in 30 years with the, the prequel trilogy or the sequel trilogy. But seeing their changes and their subtle developments and growths and like their internal monologues, it's always great to see our favorite trio, our favorite villain become a more realized character.
Right. I think the thing I would go out on is, you always hear the phrase, it's the journey, not the destination. And the journey is the comics. Like the destinations,
right.
That's what you see in the movies. You see like you see the ultimate ending of Luke Skywalker. You see the culmination of the story of Darth Vader. Well, if you want to see how they got there, the comics is the best way to do that for my money right now.
Yeah,
totally agree.
This was a fun exercise, and I think that we could do more in this era, but there's also I think this is something that we'll do in future episodes with the sequel trilogy. That's going to be we have so much more content that's not movie related to talk about the sequel trilogy. And then you go into the prequel trilogy with the Clone Wars and all of those characters. I mean, we could spend an episode a piece on some of those characters, but this was a really fun discussion. Any final thoughts before we wrap up tonight? I'll start with Jacob.
Yeah, you said Clone Wars, and I just like right now, if anyone here at Marvel is listening to me right now, which I know they are not, please just give us a clone. When you're done with the Star Wars 2020 line, give us a Clone Wars ongoing series. You think people are done, watching Clone Wars content? You just made Bad Batch, so obviously that's not the case. Like, people will read it if you just print the books. Just give us an ongoing series about like some clones. Just give us like a clone anthology of different battles throughout the galaxy, and I guarantee you it'll sell stupid amounts of covers. You can make Mike Mayhew make some Ahsoka variant cover that's going to sell for like $90, and I guarantee you everyone in our Slack channel and our Discord channel is going to be clamoring for it. So please give us more Clone Wars content, because right now the only thing we got is miniseries and a few one-shots, which is, yeah, that's all I ask.
Caleb, your final thoughts?
No, I said, that's how I said. We're excited to have more of our characters and characterizations in here. I'm just excited about what we got coming down to pipeline in the next couple episodes. Got some good stuff down the line. So no, it's always fun to talk about these characters and their growth, because that's one thing we want to do on this show itself, is grow and get better and better. So no, tomorrow, in the next couple of weeks, we'll be planning out some great content for you guys, so look forward to that.
All right, Emma, your final thoughts of the night.
Yeah, I love this character development, you guys. It's so fun to go back and analyze it, and to think that we only scratched the surface. It's nuts. And this is only in the original trilogy too. And I think that, if anything, if people are doubtful about reading the comics, or because they already know where the story ends up and all that stuff, I think point to this episode, and you will see why comics are so worth it to read, because you really get into the nitty-gritty of the characters, and I just love this stuff, and it was so much fun to talk about.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thank you guys for going along with this. When I threw this out as a topic, like I said, this wasn't what I originally thought it was going to be. This was much deeper than I thought it was going to be, and it was a lot more fun. So it was lots of fun. Thank you guys for being here. We're gonna, before we wrap up the show, a couple of notes. As somebody mentioned in the Discord tonight, our next roundtable is going to be Star Wars Mainline Volume 2. That will not be next week's episode, but that will be the next roundtable that we do. So make sure you're reading that. Next week, we are gonna have a special guest on the show, and we are going to create a little bit of a reading list for him. So that's all I'm going to tell you. You're going to have to tune in next week to figure out who the special guest is, and what exactly how we're going to create a reading list for him. But as far as tonight's show, that is going to do it for this week's episode of the Comics Force. Don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts, and tune in every Wednesday night at 8:00 here on youtube.com/Youtini to hear us live. If you like what you hear, please leave us a review on iTunes. Now that we are there and on all over the other podcasting platforms, we need those reviews to make sure that we can get, people can find our show, and those who don't know about the Youtini community can get a little insight into what we provide every week. So be sure to visit Youtini. Also be sure to visit Youtini.com for reviews, articles, and news for the entire expanded universe. It's going to be an interesting summer with all the content coming out. If we encourage you to join our Discord community, where as of the beginning of the show, we were 6 people shy of 1,000 members in our Discord. So if you know of a Star Wars fan who is looking for a positive community, send them to youtini.com/Discord. Have them join the Discord. Have them join in on these conversations. It's a lot of fun, and we get pretty passionate. If you'd like to help support the show, you can find us on patreon.com/Youtini and start receiving exclusive perks starting at just $5 a month. A special thank you to Cheryl Bell, Patrick Ortiz, and Carl Sander on our Jedi High Council level, as well as Carl Hickman, Elizabeth Cloutier, Jason Mitchell, Freddie C., and Sally and Chris Eilerson for being on our Alliance High Command for their amazing support. We cannot thank you all enough. You can tweet the show at Cosmic Force Show on Twitter, or at each of us hosts. I am at Ty Rags, Emma is at Irma Jedi 26, Caleb is at Caleb Lamanik, and Jacob is at Jacob Bosch. Thanks again to my co-hosts Emma, Jacob, and Caleb for hosting with me tonight. Thank you for all of you hanging out with us in the chat, and thank you for joining us wherever you are, whether you're on YouTube or on podcasts. We hope you will join us next week, and until then, may the Force be with you.